Welcome back to Network Africa. The World Food Programme says nearly half of Zimbabwe's population will be affected by food insecurity in rural areas during the highest hunger period of the year next year. The El Nino weather pattern has also left people living with HIV/AIDS particularly vulnerable, as many patients are refusing to take antiretroviral therapy on an empty stomach, and others spending their limited income on food rather than transport to health facilities.
The World Food Programme says nearly half of Zimbabwe's population would be affected by food insecurity in rural areas during the peak hunger period next year, leaving those affected by HIV/AIDS at risk. The agency says 3.39 million people are in need of urgent food assistance as farmers unsuccessfully tried to plant their maize crops due to El Nino-related drought. In 20 districts, the levels of food insecurity range between 50% and 79%. Senzelwe Moyo and her 2-year-old son are both HIV positive. The red indicator on the armband shows that he is extremely malnourished and needs to be in a hospital.
The child is refusing to take the medicines because normally she's saying they don't have enough food to take.
WFP's Niels Balzar says over the last couple of months, there had been increasing rates of malnutrition in various parts of the country due to the El Nino-induced drought.
That also has an impact on people living with HIV/AIDS, in that they will not be able to access enough food which they need necessarily to make sure that the drugs they're taking every day are having the intended effects.
Sipiwe Moyo is a 50-year-old farmer and HIV positive. Her husband died from AIDS in 2004, leaving her and her son behind. To get treatment, she must walk 5 hours each way to the local clinic. El Nino has also severely impacted her maize crops.
I get maybe 550 kgs if we've got rains. But last year, really, I think I only got 10 kgs or so. This year it was worse.
WHP provides HIV-positive residents of rural communities hit by the drought with food and cash assistance. At $5 per household member a month, the cash assistance is aimed at allowing them buy fresh foods while supporting the local economy.
And the government in Gabon has warned of consequences over calls for opposition leader Jean Ping for today to be observed as a national day of mourning in honor of those killed during post-electoral violence back in August. Mr. Jean Ping, who's a career diplomat, had promised to maintain his rejection of President Ali Bongo's victory despite the Constitutional Court eventually affirming him president. He's asked civil servants across the country to stay away from their workplaces, and that's not going down well with the government. The Minister for Works has sent out a statement this morning saying that with due respect to the dead, that all workers and heads of public services must ensure that they are at their duty posts today. Officials say the 3 people were killed in the post-election violence, but opposition civil society activists say that the death toll must have been a lot higher. President Bongo was sworn in last week. He won the election by less than 6,000 votes. But Mr. Ping, the main opposition runner-up, says that the polls were rigged. In Sudan, there were several doctors in public hospitals in the capital Khartoum are calling for a nationwide strike to put pressure on the government to improve their working conditions. They also want the government to invest in basic hospital infrastructure and equipment and also boost security in accident and emergency departments. Junior doctors in Khartoum and GPS started their strike on September 27th following an assault on one of their colleagues in the general hospital. That doctor was attacked when a patient died while waiting to be attended by a medical staff. They had a video put online of the aftermath of the rioting in the accident and emergency unit. There's been enough search following that release of that video. There's been an upsurge in attacks and beatings against the doctors, where frustrated patients and their families have vented their anger on the doctors. Supporters of the strike, as depicted in a tweet sent earlier today, believe that doctors in Sudan are carrying too much of a burden without enough support. We have good news here in West Africa. A boy from Ghana who was born with his stomach organs outside of his abdomen has returned home after surgery in the United Kingdom. Ethan Sugo was discovered by Dr. David Williams, who was visiting Ghana with his daughters last summer. He'd been teaching English and working on a radio station show where he met Ethan's father, who was trying to raise some money for his son to be treated abroad. Money was eventually raised and Ethan was sent to the UK for that life-saving operation. He's back now in Ghana and is all smiles, as you can see from that picture. Joining us now to discuss what may have happened to Ethan and, what happened during the surgery is Dr. Justina Seyi-Olajide. She's a pediatric surgeon. She helps us understand, what Ethan must have gone through. Dr. Seyi-Olajide, thank you so much for joining us on Network Africa.
Thank you very much. Hello?
Oh, we can hear you. You're on the program now. Thank you for joining us on Network Africa.
Okay, thank you for having me on Network Africa.
How could this have happened? How possible is it that a child could be born with his organs hanging outside of his stomach, or his stomach organs hanging outside of his body?
Okay, the condition you're discussing actually is called an omphalocele. That's a situation where a child is born and has his bowels outside of his body, but usually it's covered by a membrane. Okay, and this occurs embryonically. That's when the fetus is developing in utero. That's within the mother's womb, and there's failure of the mesodermal layers to fold completely and form the anterior wall of the body. Now, what I mean by this is usually when the baby is being formed, it's like a flat disc. Later, laterally, there are folds from both sides that come together in front to form the covering that covers the front of the abdomen. Now, if that folding does not occur properly, that results in what we call an omphalocele. And it occurs in about 1 in 4,000 live births. So it's relatively not uncommon, like we think it is. Now, if this membrane covering it ruptures during birth, then the bowels now end up being outside the body for everyone to see, which could be quite terrifying for non-medical persons.
I'm terrified just hearing that. But do we have such cases in Nigeria?
Yes, we have a number of such cases in Nigeria that have managed all over the country. Okay, for example, in Youth where I practice, there are lots of cases like that have come in. And if the membrane is intact, we can treat them conservatively. What I mean by that is non-operatively. If the membrane covering is intact, we just dress, and then skin would eventually cover it. And then later on, when the child is older, we do a surgery and we turn the bowel back into the abdomen. We have a lot of success stories with that. However, when it is ruptured, that's when the membrane is no more there. It's a different story. So in that case, it becomes an emergency, and we have to find a way to return those bowels back into the abdomen and then close the abdomen back together without causing undue pressure within the abdominal cavity. Okay, and that's where the challenge lies in such patients in our environment.
Dr. Justina Seyi-Olajide, appreciate you joining us on Network Africa, and we're glad that Ethan Sugo is okay. We wish him all the best. And that's it on Network Africa today. Thank you for watching. I am Amarachi Ubani. I'll see you next time.